Hey everyone, welcome to a special Thanksgiving episode of Next in Queue. I'm your host, Rob Dwyer, and today joining me is Jose Moreno, the Executive Director at Connect Worldwide BPO. As we were recording our session, apparently there were some technical challenges, and the beginning of our conversation was not recorded. Because of this, I wanted to fill you in on a little bit of information to help lend some context to things that are discussed later on in the episode. Jose told me about how he began his career as an operator doing pager transcription. In fact, he was operator number 34. You'll hear him reference this later in the episode. I met Jose about 6 years ago on a trip to San Pedro Sula, Honduras, when we were both employed with Convergys. And you'll hear more about our meeting as we go through this episode. So with that, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll let Jose take it away.
Life took me back into a Dell facility in El Salvador. Dell Computers opened a contact center and a service center in El Salvador, and they started to hire very aggressively. Actually, I used to work for a company named Berlitz. It was a language academy, and we had a global contract with Dell. So all of their executives were taking Spanish lessons with us. So one day the HR director came to my office and said, "You know what? We want to do an alliance with you. You guys are teaching English. We need people bilingual. So we're going to be paying for the classes if they get accepted to work for us." I said, "Okay, that's great." We started doing that together, and then she came one day and said, "You know what? You have the profile that we're looking for. Uh, would you be interested in joining the BPO world or the call center world in that time?" And say, "You know what? I never." And I told her my story about Operator 34 and all that. And she said, "Yeah, I think you're gonna be a great fit." And I applied, and I entered the company as a supervisor, as a tech support supervisor for Dell. That was in 2006, and then in 2008, Dell they struggle a little bit, financially and as an organization. Michael Dell took back the organization. I don't know if you remember this because this was very iconic when Michael Dell came back and he took it over again. So one of the first things that he did is he started to do additional efforts for retail sales, and also they understood that they are not experts in call centers. They sell computers, right? That's their business. That's their core business. That's what they did. That's what they did. That's what they do. So they outsourced everything. All the centers that they had around the globe, they outsourced, but they kept a few. El Salvador was one of the centers that they sold and outsourced. So a company named Stream Global Services, you remember that?
Yeah, I
Came
do.
on board, and they acquired the entire facility with the personnel, and Dell was their first client. I mean, you know, it was a nice move. So that was my beginning in the BPO. I didn't know anything about productivity, staffing, KPIs, continuous improvement. Everything in Dell was very, yeah, let's test for the tools. Yeah, there's a new tool out there. Let's go and test it. You know what? I'm spending 45 minutes with this customer on the phone, but did you send the survey at the end? It was like kind of that approach. It's like, so Stream came on, and then I entered the BPO environment, and I loved it. I loved it, and a few years later, that was in 2008, 2014, I moved my way up from a supervisor to a manager to a senior manager and all of that. But then I was transferred over to Honduras, and here I am. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that you talked about just very briefly, but I think this is a big difference. And one of the reasons that a lot of companies choose to outsource is there is a very different mentality often between an insourced contact center, a contact center that a business just runs as part of their normal business, and an outsourced contact center and the efficiencies that outsourced
Oh,
contact centers go for.
yeah, no, these are two complete different businesses. The model, the setup, the focus, everything, the backbone of the business is completely different. So, and it's not that one is better than the other one. These are just different. So, whenever
Yeah.
we were acquired by a BPO, we needed to relearn everything that we thought we knew. And we started to see some other things in order to become more efficient, more productive, um, more to the age of the technology, as we should. And I think it was a great experience to be in both sides of the story, in the in-house and out, and outsourced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're right. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to take care of the customer, but there are, just different ways that those two look at different things. And there are a lot more numbers, I think, in the BPO world that they're
There are.
focused on.
Yeah, there
So,
are. No, but at the end, it goes down to what you said. It's about customer experience, and I think in both worlds you are able to achieve it. Maybe the mean or the process to achieve it is the one that changes, but at the end, that is the focus, and that doesn't change. I agree.
yeah. So you've been through really some pretty major transitions where it was a unique, it's not I'm just leaving one job and I'm going to another job kind of transition. It is I'm with Dell and now I'm still supporting Dell, but now it's outsourced. And that was with Stream. And then that actually then happened again. It's actually how we cross paths. So
And
Stream
again, yeah.
ended up getting merged with Convergys. So, you know,
Yeah.
what's that like? Not everyone has gone through those kinds of transitions, but what strikes you about those kinds of transitions?
So I think it depends on which side you are. If you are on the side of the company acquiring the other company, I think that the change is pretty seamless. But if you're on the other side, if you're
Hmm.
being acquired by another company, and in that company is is in that company is big enough to um to change a little bit of the script of what you've been doing. Yeah, you have to go through various changes. I think at the end, it's everything that happens. It adds to your line of expertise, to all of the learning that you need. You start being exposed to things that you've never seen, that maybe in your current job are part of the day-to-day activities. You've been doing things the same way, so sometimes it's very helpful for you professionally to be exposed to other ways of doing things, to other type of systems, other type of processes, structures. Um, so we humans tend to react differently to change. For me, I think after going through a couple of transitions like those, I become very thankful when I get the opportunity to get to know about other ways to do things. Nothing's written on stone. As we said a couple of minutes ago, we're looking for the same thing. It's customer experience. It's maintain happy clients. It's see an operation to grow. See people grow. All of these things are the same in all the companies. It's just the delivery aspect that changes. So I think it's if you haven't gone through a transition like this, you must. It's one of the invaluable one of the invaluable growing pains that you will have in the industry. And it's really valuable for your expertise level. I'll say it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. One of the things that I think you can learn when you get these different experiences and you learn about different ways to do things. A lot of people use the term, which I don't like. They say best practices, right? Everybody's got their best practices. And I don't like that term because
Yeah.
I think there are better practices and we can look at better. I think if you
Yeah.
set yourself up to say this is the best way, then you're not willing to accept that there is something actually that's better out there. So I'm not a
Right.
big fan of that term, but you can learn so much every time you experience those kinds of changes, and there are different perspectives coming in, and it's like, okay, well, let's re-examine, let's take some fresh eyes and kind of re-examine how we're operating here. Sometimes you're doing a really good job, and sometimes you go, oh, you know what, you're right, we could do that better, we could change that.
Yeah. You know, and the way you and I met, I think is a perfect example of it. I was coming from a company that was very into continuous improvement. Actually, I was able to get my green belt Six Sigma green belt certification with Stream. They paid for that. They sent me over to Florida to be certified in Six Sigma. They were very into data analytics and how to become their leadership more proficient on understanding complex situations that will live on a daily basis. Um, and all of a sudden, we were acquired by Convergys, and then our our universe of clients grew exponentially. So we used to
Yeah,
have, I'll say maybe 2008 agents within this particular company, technological company. Now we had 25,000, and that will require a different set of resources to work with. And they had their own coaching methodology, and they had their own data analytics, and they had their own, that at the end was based on the same basic principles. Is um, but if I would be if I will stay maybe in the same company, I would have take my Six Sigma training and start doing things like that and continue doing it day over day, month over month, year after year without variances. Now, when we were acquired by another company and we were exposed to other techniques and other focuses, I started meeting people that, like you, came on board, started teaching us practices such as the best way to coach or a better way to coach, using emotions, using all of these type of
yeah,
things. This is what industry allows you to do. Nothing is written on stone. I don't think I agree with you. There's not such thing as a best practice. I mean, there are better practices everywhere, and
yeah,
the industry is so kind. The BPO industry and the service industry is so kind that they will put those opportunities to learn and do things differently on a daily basis from people that you don't even know. So
yeah,
yeah, it's great. I've loved being and working in this industry. It's a very fast paced, uh, um, and emotions demanding industry. Uh, but I love it. I love it. I think I've never learned. I would never have learned what I've learned if I wouldn't be in this industry, in the BPO industry. So
yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I love hearing about, and I hear it all the time, is, and you embody this, right? Is coming in at that customer facing level, that entry level, that hey, I'm number 34, right? And the growth that
yeah,
this industry offers people,
yeah,
because you've gone on now, right, to lead really large teams and be responsible for financial performance and agent performance and customer performance. Like, Talk to me a little bit about the opportunities that you see in this industry.
Sure. When we started with this project, it started in my head a few years ago. But we really started with it and with all the implementation and all the partner alliances and everything a few months ago. Um, we have been seeing an increase of demand for for service centers. Due to various reasons, right? So COVID was one of those. Actually, the world changed dramatically when COVID hits. A bunch of service industries needed to go back and work at home. There was a complete setup of technology that was created to support that. Um, and everybody was locked down, and everything went down in regards to volume and type of and different support instances. But now that everything is going back up again, it's I mean demand is growing so fast that current providers are not having the capacity to supply as fast as the demand goes. So that's where we would like to step into. Um, we I as we've been talking, I've been the opportunity to work with amazing people in the past. And one of the greatest things of the industry is the networking that you are able to do. This is why we're
Yeah,
sitting here today. Actually, we worked together what 7 years ago, and
yeah, it's been a long
here we
time.
are having
Yeah,
having a nice conversation about how things in life has been and all of that. It just like you, I've been able to meet and have a very good relationship with a lot of incredible professionals out there within the different segments. And so I started to talk to them and and try to build something strong. Try to build a good foundation for this service need that we are seeing on an increase. And that's how Connect Worldwide BPO was born. Actually, um, I'm not an expert in IT. I do operations. I've been doing operations all my life, but I have very good contacts within the IT industry, and we have partnered up with a very strong company named Cyber Seguro out in Tucson. These guys are one of the leading companies, not only in IT but also network security, which is
yeah,
it's an absolute need these days with all the cyber fraud and all of these things that are happening in the world. So these guys are working with us. We have a lot of friends within the HR systems, CRM systems, telephony platforms, and all of these areas. So I started talking to different people, and we came up with this robust solution on how to do business very seamless and very secure. Once that was created, we started building our sales pipeline because of course in order to build for this beautiful setup of resources and technology and all of this we need to have clients.
yeah.
So we started to build that and started to and I know at the same time I also had the opportunity to meet with some strong sales executives and business executives out there that are very well connected in with various companies within various sectors, and they're hearing from them the different needs that they have. So we started to explore the possibility of opening a small operation in Honduras. And then we got our first client. Actually, we're not working with a client. We have 40 seats. We're doing some back office work, mainly focused on data entry. And that's how we were born. What is the projection, or what is it that what I'm trying to do? To be honest with you, Rod, is we want to build something strong since the beginning, so we can make it grow not just in Honduras but only but regionally and then across the globe. The only way we're going to be doing that is with a very firm culture on how we want to do things, and that's what we are dedicating a lot of resources and energy and time and effort on building that culture. We have the resources, now we have the facility, now we have the client. It's about spreading that culture of getting better every day and doing things better every day. We have adopted this philosophy from the Formula One type of setup, where at the end, if you see how they operate, this is a very complicated sport. I mean, you have bunch of people running race cars and all of that. They are exposed to accidents and all of that, but you have an amazing crew right behind every car, and the most important asset in that setup is a driver.
Yeah.
Would you agree? So
Yeah,
if
for
if
sure.
if the if the driver is in good shape, if the driver has his car tuned up, is and everything's where it needs to be, and everybody's just focused on what they need to do, so that driver can win the race, that will put you in a whole different level, and that will make you win the race. So that is kind of the approach that we're doing, and we're pretty excited that we've been able to create a very good, well thought design product, so we can win the different races out there. So that is kind of my perspective right now. This is what we are. We are the new kid in town. Actually, we are in the. You remember the facility, right? So we are
Yeah.
in the same park. It's an industrial park. It's state of the art facility. The name is Altia Business Park. Um, we are building our floor and of 212 seats. That is going to be ready by end of December. We have started in another floor temporary because we already had the client and we already had the setup, so we did it. But our floor is going to be ready in by the end of December, and then our second floor is going to start to be built by February March range, so it could be ready by April June. So we're going to have the capacity to seat about between 600 and 700 agents towards the end of next year. So we're pretty
That's
excited
a
about
lot.
this.
Yeah.
It's a
So
lot. It's a lot.
I
Mhm.
want to paint a picture just for, not everyone who is listening to this show has, number one, been involved with a BPO, right? They might be insourcing,
Yeah.
they might not even be in the contact center business. And number two, um, I don't know how many of my listeners have been to Honduras and San Pedro Sula in particular. But the business park, for those who, particularly Americans, when you think of call centers, when I think of call centers in America and I think of call centers offshore, like these are very different. And the difference is a lot of it is the atmosphere in the building. It That office park there is really, really nice, and there's a great place to congregate and eat, and there's a really social aspect. There's a lot of different businesses going on there, and kind of an open courtyard in the middle. um, and it really is, it feels different to me having been there than any contact center I've ever been in the US.
Yeah, and it's a pretty unique setup. You're not gonna be able to find anything like Altia in the region, and the most I think the closest thing that we can talk about maybe will be the Philippines, where you have
Yeah.
all these buildings and different companies converging in just one single space, but it's not as fancy and as well designed as Altia is. So yeah, a couple of aspects to consider as well is we are located in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, which is not the main capital of Honduras,
Right.
but is the industrial capital. So 60% of the GDP of the country is built in this city. So this is how important San Pedro Sula is. We have one of the biggest amount of bilingual schools in a single city in Central America. So bilingual schools located in one city, we have the highest number of bilingual schools. That gives us a tremendous amount of throughput. So a lot of candidates graduating every year that are joining our forces. Um, And the way Altia was built geographically, it's kind of like this smart city setup. So I don't know if you remember, there's a huge university right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shopping mall right next to the university. Then there is Altia, the business park. There's another big university about 300 meters away. Um, there's going to be, they're already working on building a hospital in the backside of the building. So it's like everything that you need will be within 5 minutes range. And that just creates this atmosphere that you were mentioning. It's very unique. It's very friendly. And it is very adequate for the city that we operate into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people outside of Honduras, maybe people in the US in particular, but what is the biggest misconception about Honduras?
Yeah. And maybe I wouldn't limit to the US. I'm Salvadorian, as I told you at the beginning. And I never visited Honduras before, prior moving into Honduras for work. So that can tell you a lot. um, Honduras created this name or this buzz around security concerns, because of different activities happening. And it became, actually, if you remember, a few years ago, San Pedro Sula became the murder capital of the world. I don't know if
I
you heard
do know
about that.
that
Actually,
because it was ranked there when I visited, actually.
I know, I know exactly. And it's funny. It's really funny because one of the things that made Honduras or San Pedro earn that prestigious title, and I think I had a conversation with you a few years ago. It's because the morgue. There's only one morgue in about 300 kilometers around. So every single death, at the end, it's the amount of deaths per every 10,000 inhabitants. That's how you get the rate of murders per habitants. Um, so all those deaths were accounted in San Pedro Sula. That's why the number went up, and we had this big number of deaths. But and that's one part. And the other part is San Pedro Sula is a port that connects all Central America with Guatemala and Mexico. So it's a port for drugs trafficking, for so many bad things happening. So that also created some additional concerns, that, of course, have gone into the media. And if you go to the different media setups, the one thing that you're gonna see is don't go there because it's dangerous. I'm telling you, I've been living in Honduras for 7 years now. I've never been exposed to any dangerous situation in my life. Yes, there has been like different type of protests and riots, but I think that we have these type of things everywhere. But never been exposed to robbery or anything that I've been able to feel insecure. And so my best recommendation that I can tell everybody that asks me how's Honduras in regards to security and all of these things, is come and visit. Come and visit. You're gonna fall in love with it, and probably it's gonna happen. What happened to me is I don't want to leave now. You know, it's but reality is that, yes, as any other Latin America country, actually, as any other country, because I think it's the same thing in the U.S. If you go to Detroit, maybe you'll give me the same advice. If you go down Chicago area, maybe you'll tell me, hey,
St.
watch it.
Louis, right? I mean,
St. Louis,
I
yeah,
think,
right.
yeah, it's funny because I talk to people, sometimes people say, well, St. Louis is a really dangerous city. And we have our own challenges in St. Louis, but I think for every country, for every city, a lot of times it really just boils down to there are pockets of challenges where we haven't solved all the problems, and there may be some areas that maybe are not the safest for you to be in at all times of the day. But that doesn't mean that you can't live there and feel safe.
Yeah, it's the same thing, and you know where to go at what time, and and it's the same like everywhere. But um, now business perspective, I'll tell you, maybe Honduras is one of the most efficient locations that you'll find right now in the region, and efficient because we have a good amount of throughput, good amount of talent, due to the geographics and the level of education from the population in San Pedro Sula. There's a lot of cultural affinity with the U.S. I don't know if you had the chance. I think that you had the chance. We had lunch at Carl's Jr. Fridays and all these different
Yeah.
chains that you used to have back home. I think, and that is one of the most impressive things when you come in and visit Honduras, that you don't think that you will be able to find the McDonald's or anything like that. It's like, it's very Western. There's a lot of
Mm.
influence from the U.S. The majority of the people that I work with at the office either had been or had relatives in the U.S. So they understand kind of the different train of thoughts, let's say, that the Americans have, and these put us in a very great advantage in order to provide a good service to American customers.
Yeah. The
You know,
only difference, honestly, in the fast food places is the size of the drinks. The size of the
I know,
drinks is.
I know. These are not
I
super
think
sized type of drink.
I think the rest of the world is shocked when they come to America and see the size of the drinks that we have at fast food places. I will never forget going into a Wendy's in Honduras. That was the first, Western, if you will, or U.S.
Yeah,
chain that I visited, and I ordered a spicy chicken sandwich. It's my favorite, and got large, large fries, large Coke. I'll never forget when they gave me the cup. I was like, "Is this large? Because this is like a kid size in the U.S."
I
It was
know,
like 12 ounces maybe or something like that. That was large, and I was
I
like,
know, I know.
"Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the rest of the world does things a little bit differently than we do in the U.S. when it comes to our
I
soft
agree.
drinks."
I agree. Yeah, you gotta grab your glass with the two arms and everything. And here, no, is the regular glass.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, but maybe that will be my message to the world. It's come and meet us, visit us. You'll see there's a bunch of good things that nobody talks about Honduras these days. For example, we have the second largest coral reef in the world. It is the one that comes from Mexico and it goes down to all of the Caribbean Honduran islands. We have one of the biggest native settlements in the region. It's called Garifunas, and they have their own culture. It's beautiful. It's what I told you a few minutes ago. We have one of the largest amount of bilingual schools settled in just one single city. Um, the economy is good. There's good environment for setting up businesses. The government is taking and doing a lot of things to invest in security, in education, in health. Actually, Honduras nowadays is one of the lowest, one with the lowest COVID cases in the region because of the different efforts that we have made, or the government has made to bring vaccines on time, make sure that everybody create consciousness about getting vaccinated and all these things. So it's a great location to do business these days. If you go to my neighbor countries, even my the country where I born, um, everything is saturated. You have industries in where BPO had reached maybe the 25,000 amount of employees or 35,000 amount of employees. Honduras is a fairly new environment. Maybe we have about 9 to 10,000 BPO employees, so there's a lot of room to grow. And we have one of the I think most complex and robust setup of technologies. We have two different internet fiber coming into the city, into San Pedro Sula in particular. So we have a lot of redundancies for ISPs. all the different supplies that we have within Altia. We have three different type of redundancies for electrical power, for water, for all this. So these allow us to provide a 24/7, 365 days a year type of support. So it's a great facility, man. You've been here, you've seen it. I'll just wish that everybody that maybe is running into doubt or don't have a clear idea on how Honduras could be had the opportunity to come and see it themselves.
Yeah, I imagine that COVID was a really big challenge. Um, how how did you see that play out in Honduras in particular? Because I think we all think about how it plays out in our own regions. But what did you see?
So I think we went through different stages, and I think worldwide it was kind of the same. Maybe first of all, I think it was there's a lot of skepticism about what COVID could be. Then there was a lot of ignorance. We didn't quite understand the extent of the virus and what it could do for you and for your community. Um, then, of course, the lockdown came down, so we were locked down, and we were allowed. Initially, I think we were allowed to circulate based on using the last digit of your ID, maybe once a week or something like that, so you can go and do some grocery shopping. Um, we that were in the service industry, an enormous hit for
Yeah.
everything. I mean, clients, we started to talk to our clients, and our clients said, you know what, we can't service our clients anymore, so we're going to stop the service. So I don't need your people right now. So we started to allocate resources the best way we could. Suddenly our agents, maybe 60-70% of our agents weren't in good shape to come to work into a facility. So they needed to go back and work at home. So we started to incorporate different technologies to make that happen and keep servicing our clients. Um, Volumes were completely erratic based on different things. So we could have an excess of volume one week and hours of availability the next week because we didn't know what we were dealing with. It was depending on what the virus was creating in any particular region at that time. It's there was a lot of confusion going on. There was a lot of um, uncertainty on things. And that situation kept for about a year, if you remember. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if it's coming down. We don't know if it's going up. The vaccines, when are these going to be ready? And when these were ready, when these are going to become available in my country?
Right. Right.
It's when these are going to become ready in my country. So um, I think there were a lot of emotions going out there. And the only way we were able to go through these things was, number one, understanding that the first priority was everybody's health, and we were in in the focus of taking care of each other. And the best way to do it was taking care of myself first. So taking my own precautions, don't being exposed, taking care of my environment, and also the environment I moved into. And second of all, is once we created that culture of self care and auto care and community care, I think was to start reactivating things little by little. Instead of doing hours of operations for 15 hours a day, we went down to 7 or 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, we started to separate spaces. Maybe a floor where I used to be, where we used to fit 400 employees before, we were able to fit maybe 180 now, because of
Yeah.
different setup and the different configurations that we needed to make. So it was a learning process every day, and I think until today it's still a learning process, not as complex as it used to be, but it was a learning process on what is it that we need to do to keep ourselves safe. That was the main priority. you know. So how did you live through COVID in the US? What was your
Yeah,
experience?
well, I think the experience was different depending on kind of what you did. I remember, like you, being very skeptical of what this would be. Particularly in the U.S. We'd had like SARS before and Ebola and these other viruses that in other places had some really disastrous effects, but we hadn't really seen a large scale spread in the US. And, I assumed wrongly that it would be very much like those, right? Maybe you'd get some cases in some of the port cities, the Seattles, the New Yorks. And it became very apparent very quickly that this was not the same. Um, and so, our organization was primarily a work from home organization already, which was fortuitous for us. But I didn't work from home. I worked in the office. It was very close to home, but I, was in the office. And so I remember, like, we just had a meeting and was like, okay, well, we're all going to work from home. Maybe it's going to be a month, maybe two, right? We didn't know, but that was kind of the idea, that this work from home thing was going to be this temporary deal.
Yeah.
And there was, this lockdown, but here I am, right? It's now we're really close to 2022, and this was back in March of 2020, right? So we're nearly 2 years later, and I'm still working from home. That's we actually moved facilities. So we had a facility that was way too big for us anyway, because we had migrated to a mostly work from home environment. And so now we have a much smaller facility, and I can go there, right? I could office there, but it was just like, after a while, it was like, okay, this is going to be long term. So I need to not have my laptop at the dining room table. Like, I need to make an office. Right? So you
Right.
you get
Right.
to this point where you're like, okay, well, I need to get a setup that I can work with long term, because I don't know how long this is going to last. And so now I stay at home because I've got the setup. There's no point. I mean, I go into the office every now and then, but for the most part, I stay home. But I think for me and for our organization, that's one way that it happened. But there are plenty of other people that experienced it totally differently. They were going into the office every day, and their job maybe required them to go into the office every day, or there were contact centers that they weren't prepared to all of a sudden take their 300 or 400 or even more agents and just turn around and like send them home tomorrow. That's a big deal. That's a major undertaking if you're not already there. And so I think a lot of companies struggled with that. A lot of people struggled with that. And it's still a struggle. We're still getting through it. I think there have been some other challenges in the U.S. that have made getting through it a little more challenging, maybe than some other places, or maybe than it should have been in the U.S. But we're making progress, and I think everyone's feeling a lot safer about
Yeah.
just being social again. That's been
Yeah. Right. And
going to
I don't know if you
events
like.
and doing
Mhm.
things. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, we needed it. We needed it. I needed it. I can tell you that. But one of the things that I think was my personal learning and take about everything, because we are in the industry, we were talking about this at the beginning, that there's a point in life in where you start appreciating an opportunity to learn something, right? So you become um more perceptive on things that changes you and changes behaviors from you. Um and 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 one of the things I really appreciate about, or I would like to say that I got a good learning from during this COVID process was it's that I realized that I don't need as many things that I thought I need, you know?
Mm.
And I think companies did that too. Companies started thinking maybe we don't need to have a big facility. Maybe we don't need to have this amount of luxury and things. Because at the end of the day, this is a people world,
Hmm.
and I think that we were forgetting that at some point. Um, we are the ones that are moving the world. We with capabilities, with skills, with behaviors, with patterns, and all of these things. So the most important things in life, I say that the life we know today is what we have within, right? So let's start dedicating more resources and more energy to it instead of the environment. Or do you like this blue carpet or this yellowish turquoise type of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I think everybody learned about is regardless, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the account if you're not able to use it. If you're not able to go out and enjoy with family, or if you're not able to invest on what you want because you're locked down. That kind of perspective really opened my eyes throughout this time, and I think it was great.
I think that that is fascinating insight. And I will tell you the thing that really that I think I learned was how much our relationships with people matter. One of the things that and this podcast is a great example, and I've told a few people that I love talking with people that I haven't talked to in a long time, and sometimes we take for granted uh,
Right.
getting in touch with people and talking to people that we know because lives get busy, right? And we don't always take the time. And when all of a sudden you're isolated, when
Right.
when it becomes
Right.
not optional, or the way that you have always gone about things is different in regards to communicating to people, that for me changed my outlook. And that's one of the things that I love about this show, is that I get to talk to people. Some people are brand new to me, and I love meeting new people and forging new relationships. And some of those people are people that I've known for a long time and I just haven't talked to. Like, let's talk. And so that's exciting for me.
It is. It is. Imagine the Rob Dwyer 7 years ago entering into a foreign country with a lot of security concerns, and
It
now
was actually my first trip abroad. So I will tell you a quick little story before we wrap up. So the only time I had left the US, I went on vacation to the Bahamas, which is like barely leaving the US. I mean, yes, technically you need a
it's in the
passport,
U.S. Yeah.
but you still spend American dollars. I mean, they have Bahamian dollars, but they're tied to the US. And so this was my first trip abroad, Honduras, and I was actually going with my boss Mike, who had traveled all over. He had been on lots of business trips, so he was an experienced
Yeah.
traveler. I was not. I had no clue what I was doing. And I remember two things. So I got some like industrial DEET mosquito repellent, this big bottle of mosquito repellent, because I got, vaccines before I left. But I put this stuff in the wrong bag. And so when I was going through security to leave, they're like, yeah, you can't take this on the plane. So they tossed that out. So right, I didn't need it, but that was like the one thing. It was like the special thing that I got for this.
Oh.
And airport security is like, nope, can't take it on the plane. It's too big. It's liquid. So okay, strike one. So then I get to the airport, and there is something unique to the size of both certain foods and insects in Central America. You guys
Yes.
have the biggest grasshoppers I have ever seen in my entire life, and I'll never
Do it.
forget.
And in some cities, we eat them. We eat those. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in the airport and I see one of these grasshoppers that is just ginormous. It was the size of a small dog. And so I was taken aback by that. And then the last piece, it was a long-term trip. We were there for 3 weeks. And we had the opportunity over one of the weekends to go to Copan, which is the Mayan ruins.
Yeah.
So it's on the it's the northwestern part of the country. So it's a pretty decent drive from where we're. And we are so we're driving through the mountains, and we're in our driver's got this little 4-cylinder little compact car going uphill. It's just 2 lanes, and then he would pass people, but it took like forever to pass, and you'd see cars coming the other direction. You're like, this is going to be the end of my life right here. And then he'd sneak over, and you're like, oh, okay, that's relaxing. But the thing about Copan is it's really close to the Guatemalan border. And as you mentioned earlier, because there is a lot of traffic there, they actually had guards, security standing in the middle of the highway. So we're kind of out
rifles
what feels like the middle of nowhere. Yes, big rifles. And there's, I don't know, probably half a dozen, maybe a little bit more, and they're just standing in the middle of the highway blocking it off, right? It's like a security checkpoint. And I remember Mike and I are sitting in the back seat, and I looked over at him and I was like, should I have brought my passport? Because I left it in the hotel. I thought that would be a safe place for it. And Mike just said, you know what? If they arrest you, I'll try and get you on the way back.
Yeah. What probably was going to happen if that happened, I don't know any particular reason why they would arrest you, but if that could happen, I should be receiving a call at any point in the day saying, you remember Rob? Yep. He's in jail in Copan. It's like, okay. So let me talk to my contacts at Altia, because my landlord is not only my landlord. They take care of everything. So
that's too funny. Yeah, it was. We didn't have to worry at all. It was a wonderful time. I got amazing pictures. I really enjoyed that trip.
Did you get to see all? They have different environments at Copan. They have the ruins. They have all these coffee experience. They take you through the different coffee plantations and all of this. They have also
to do the coffee. Well, we got to do the birds.
Oh, the birds. That's amazing too. Yeah. They also have one of the biggest tobacco plantations in Honduras.
Okay.
So there are so many things to do in there, but I'm glad that you had a chance to go there. So yeah, this is Honduras. You lived through it, yeah.
Yeah, I brought back some cigars. They were wonderful. You know what? It has been fantastic having you on the show. I really appreciate you joining. This is actually going to be over the Thanksgiving holidays. We're recording this a little bit earlier than what I would normally do, because I'm not going to do a show over Thanksgiving, but happy Thanksgiving, because you're going to come out on the Friday after Thanksgiving here in the States. So
yeah, I know, and it's so great. Thank you for the time. I know it's there's people lining up to be in the show, and it's a complete privilege not only to talk to you about the industry and the new companies and the new tendencies in the industry, but also catch up with old friends, because this is is what we do in BPO. We meet people, we touch people, we see people grow, and it's just this sense of humanity coming out of an industry that is just so amazing. One of the things to be thankful about, and for everybody that is watching this video, happy Thanksgiving. Take a couple of minutes to be thankful about everything that we have got. We've got the opportunity to go through a pandemic situation. There's a lot of people that weren't able to make it. So, but here we are, all together, trying to go back to where we used to be before, with being better human beings, I'll say. So thanks, Rob. It was great talking to you again, and we'll be close. So anytime that you want me to go and start talking about food and um, whatever you want me to talk about, I'll jump in and do it. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Manolo, thank you for joining Next in Queue. We'll talk soon.
Take care, buddy. Bye.